It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Bucknell head softball coach, Coach Sarah Caffrey. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college softball?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't. I worked camps when I played at Jacksonville, and I thought I was going to go into the private sector, personal training kind of world, like exercise science, kines, maybe even teaching. But I had an opportunity to go to Texas Tech and volunteer, which I don't know if you've ever been to West Texas, but it's completely different than where I grew up and where I played, and it was a much bigger school. So it kind of just seemed too good to pass up. And I just had a great experience and I just never left. So it wasn't necessarily planned, but once I got into it, I just really loved working with the players and kind of doing the development and just kind of everything that comes with it. It's chaos, but it's just it's a really cool lifestyle. So
Of course, what was your collegiate accomplishments like going to college and playing college softball?
From high school to college was a little not drastic, but it's just a different mindset, in Alabama. It's really competitive softball. We played a lot of games, so I was really fortunate to be on a really great team. We played for the state championship my senior year. And then to go into college, I was excited to go there just because they hadn't been successful yet, and that was something that really drew me in. So I got to play there and kind of be on the team that won the first championship. We got to go to a regional at Florida, which was really exciting. We played UCLA while we were there. So just getting to be a part of a program that hadn't quite felt what winning was like, that was really exciting. And kind of what drew me to Jacksonville initially is just the campus is beautiful. It's a great opportunity, but also to kind of be the first was something that really excited me about being able to play there.
Of course, going to Jacksonville, what was that experience like getting to put on that Jacksonville softball jersey?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything like it. I think when you get that scholarship or you get the opportunity to play, no matter where it is, Division 1, JUCO, like you name it, D2, D3, I think getting to play at any level past high school is such a great thing, and it's something that not everybody gets to do. So it was great for me. I was about 6 hours from home. I got to see friends and family. I got to kind of feel what it was like to go away, but not too far. Jacksonville's right next to the beach. So of course that was a big draw for me. But I think just being able to compete and play against, the Floridas and the Florida States and those schools, I think it was just a great experience for me to play.
While playing, what were some of your biggest accomplishments as a softball player?
Oh gosh. I like I said, I think just going to be able to compete for the championship. I know I was pitcher of the year at some point and maybe that same year, maybe my junior year, but I think in general just being able to compete for the championship, go to a regional, represent Jacksonville and kind of put them on the map. I know that was the first time playing on national TV and stuff to that effect. So I think those to me are what stands out. I couldn't rattle off any stats or facts at this point. I'm kind of removed a couple, like 10 years, but yeah, I think just being able to compete for the championship really is the main thing for me that stands out.
Of course, while in college, what was that experience like getting your first pitch and throwing out your first pitch?
I think it's something you'll never forget. I remember we were at Florida International playing and it was Texas A&M Corpus Christi and it was my first game. I got to throw the whole game. I pitched a lot that first weekend and I think just having the support of your coaches and your teammates, knowing that you've earned the right to have the ball in that moment. And as a freshman, knowing that you know nothing, even if you think you do, I think that was that's one of those games I'll always remember. I had a really great pitching coach and she always taught so much throughout the game that I felt like every time I pitched, I had an opportunity to learn about myself or about the game or moments. And so that's something that I'll probably always look back on and remember that moment of it's crazy and it's scary, but it's also you've done it your whole life. So it was really no different than playing before I got to college, but it was also very different. So it's just a great experience.
After college, what was that transition like going into the volunteer assistant role at Texas Tech?
It was pretty hard for me, I'm not gonna lie. I was, 20 hours away from my family. I didn't know anyone. I came in and I got to work under Shannon Hayes and his pitching coach, Allie. And so that was just kind of a totally different world. They had 9 pitchers on staff, which at that point, think back 10 years ago, people had 1 or 2. So it was really it was an opportunity to have a lot of responsibility. I got to work with 5 pitchers directly and kind of be side by side with the pitching coach. And like I said, she taught me a lot about pitch calling and how to manage a game. And with that many pitchers, you can kind of do a lot. So it was a total culture shock. I threw a lot of batting practice. But it was a good opportunity for me to grow up and kind of be on my own and figure out, is this something I wanted to pursue? And to be honest, Shannon Hayes, who's actually at Grand Canyon now as the head coach, he's one of the best recruiters I've ever been around, and he's one of the most charismatic people I've ever been around. So I learned so much about kind of those aspects that I maybe wouldn't have known as a player. And so honestly, my time there kind of set me up for my whole future, but it was a really cool experience just to be at a school, 4,000 students at Jacksonville. You go to Texas Tech and it's probably 40 plus. So it was just a totally different world.
How was that experience like going to Utah State to become their assistant coach and full-time assistant coach?
Yeah. Again, another culture shock to go from, Texas to the cold. It was a really great experience, totally different culture. You have mountains, you have a Mormon religion that's a little bit different, and how people is very family oriented place to live. Logan, Utah is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. So that was great. I had a great mentor in Steve Johnson, who came over from Auburn at the time. And so I was really fortunate to work for someone who could teach me how to be an assistant and what it entailed and how to kind of I always think good assistants, they're able to have a feel for what's needed next and kind of forecast, okay, this is what's going to come next. So he was really good at teaching that part of it. I learned a lot about the game and management, and honestly, it gave me a lot of responsibility, which was really good for me. So really positive experience. I loved my players. Still close with a lot of them to this day. And yeah, just it was such a good opportunity for me.
How was that experience like for you to get to go to Penn State and go into the powerhouse?
Yeah, again, another just crazy opportunity. I got to coach with, the coach that I played for at Jacksonville for 3 years. And Penn State is, gosh, it's a place that will stay with you forever. The alumni and the supporters and just the way that people love it. I don't think I've ever been anywhere that is even comparable to Penn State. Really fortunate they're still down the road. So my husband works there. It's where we met. And I think, going from a mid-major to a Power 5 is definitely a shock. It's a little bit different. It's fast-paced. You're busy. You work a lot, and I loved it. It was such a great experience. I love my time there. I love my players. And it's, Penn State's a place where once you're in it for life, and even though I'm not coaching there anymore, it's been really cool to follow along and see the new head coach, Coach Crowell. She's just, it's fun to see them be successful. And I think that's what you want to see out of your former players, right? Is that they're kind of chasing that success. And Penn State was definitely just one of my most meaningful coaching experiences, and spending so much time there. It was just really fun to see players come in as freshmen and then graduate. That was my first time getting to spend 4 years with a player. And so I just really enjoyed I kind of grew up a lot in that experience. So that was really fun for me.
Of course, what were some of the things that you took along your way, not just at Penn State, but along your way to then help you to come to Bucknell to become their head coach?
Yeah. I think a big piece of the puzzle is how you want to create culture and how you want to treat your players and how you want to talk to them, and kind of what that looks like. I think in general, just teaching the game. So I always compare it's the same as being if you're a math teacher for 7th grade, you're teaching a curriculum, and softball is no different. So it's, the people I've worked for, I've learned a lot about that. And even the people I've worked with, like the assistants I've worked with, I think I've learned a lot about how to teach different aspects of the game. I was a pitcher. So that part is always going to be near and dear, but also, learning a lot about hitting and recruiting and teaching infield and all the skills that kind of go with our sport. So I think that would be a key piece, but also just how to work within a staff. I think it's undervalued how hard it is to lead a staff as a head coach and manage people's expectations and make sure that you're mentoring and growing, but also working together and collaborating. So I've learned a ton from kind of those pieces and that higher level administrative side of being a coach. But truly nothing can prepare you for it. I don't care how long you're an assistant. Being a head coach is completely different. It comes with its own unique set of challenges and stuff. So I think just having the experiences at the different places kind of helps mold you into what you do like, maybe what you don't like, or what you would do differently. And so I think ultimately those are kind of what led me to Bucknell.
Of course, what was that feeling like getting announced to become the next head coach for Bucknell?
I think it's just surreal. I think I never really planned to be a head coach. I really liked my role at Penn State. I really liked my job and kind of how, as an assistant, you get to kind of be in the trenches with the players and really work with them and develop them. And not to say you don't get to as a head coach, you just have so many other things on your plate that you maybe don't as an assistant. And so Bucknell really drew me in. We played here all the time. When I was at Penn State, I knew the campus was beautiful. I knew it was high academic, and those are things that were really attractive to me. But really the thing about Bucknell that's so great is the people and the atmosphere and the players that we get to work with. And so being named was one of those moments of like, really? You're gonna give this to me? Like, what a great thing, but it's been a really fun and challenging ride, but it's been great. And it's one of those things that I try not to take for granted because it's an opportunity that not many people get. And I know there's a lot of people always applying for different jobs and maybe not getting those opportunities yet. And for me, it was something that I didn't necessarily think would happen, but it did. And so I think just the opportunity to be so close to State College where my husband works, like I said, and be in this family environment, it's a dream come true in some ways.
What was that feeling like the first time you got to step onto that field as a head coach?
Well, my grass was overgrown and it needed a little work. So it was post-COVID and I was a little bit like, ooh, we're gonna get some work done. But no, it was amazing. Just I got to be announced at the field actually. Everyone was masked up because it was right after the summer of 2020. And so that feeling of just standing in front of them for the first time, introducing myself and kind of talking about what my plan would be going forward. Again, I don't think there's anything like it. And to inherit such a great group of like young women who are just driven and get it and they're mature. And it was a really fun, it's been fun to just take it on and get to know them and their families. And I don't think there's anything like it, to be honest.
Of course, what does a typical game day look like for you as a head coach?
Well, that's a great question. I think depends on where we are. If we're at home, it requires a little bit more setup on our part or maybe more time. But typically for me, it starts with a workout just so I can kind of get my mind right and get ready and focused. And then getting the team ready. We're on the road a lot, so most of the time it's getting them to breakfast, making sure all the logistics are handled. I have two great assistants and they handle pretty much all of that, which is amazing. So getting them their food, making sure they have coffee because you don't want to see them if they don't have caffeine in them. So we kind of coordinate all of that, get there, we get through our warm up, we try to keep it light. I'm really big on gratitude, so we do a lot of we start every day with gratitude of what are we grateful for today and what showed up in our lives, and everybody kind of shares. And so that's a game day must. And so, yeah, we kind of work through it from there and, spend time preparing them for what's going to come. And hey, here's the pitches we might see. Here's the pitcher we might face. Here's some of the defense, and kind of making sure that everything is lined up for what we're about to do that day. But I think overall it's kind of starting from that place of being balanced, being even. I'm not a big up and down person. I'm pretty even keel for the most part. So I try to make sure that everything starts with that, right? Because everyone has jitters on game day. Everyone can, battle those nerves. And so try to be the one that kind of sets the tone of, hey, this is what we're doing. It's the same thing every day. And making sure that we kind of keep them in that zone.
Of course, can you talk about the culture that you've built for Bucknell softball?
Yeah, absolutely. So the things that we really kind of built our foundation on is working hard, competing, doing things the right way, understanding that within those three, that comes with sacrifice and it comes with an attitude of gratitude. So to me, mid-major, sometimes we might not have all the fancy clothes or the travel. It might be a little bit more daunting. You might rake your own field. You might, have different things. Everyone at every job and every school has something that is a challenge. And I think at this high academic level, it's keeping them grounded to knowing that while it might be hard, we can do it, and it's going to require a little bit of sacrifice at times. It might require a little bit of hard work. But when you have to earn something, to me, it means more. And so I think it's really important to kind of keep them in that mindset. We want student athletes that are both. Like, you're not just a student, you're not just an athlete, you're a student and an athlete, and that takes a lot. So we really build our foundation on that. We work on our culture every week, if not more than one time, just because it's something that never stops growing. I felt that this year we had a really big shift in our mindset and how we kind of think about the game. And I think the gratitude thing is really having a profound effect on our culture and them understanding, like, hey, we get to do this every day. And, I get letters every day from players who want to come to Bucknell, and emails and everything else. And for 20 to 22 people to be the only ones who make it out of the 10,000 emails, I mean, that's special. So I think it's us really trying to nail that down. And like I said, my staff has been, they've been everything when it comes to kind of getting that in place. And I have an assistant that has been here with me for 2 years now. And she's kind of like the mama bear who helps kind of infuse that in all areas. And then I have a new assistant, but he was just so impactful in his first year. He's been a head coach. He just gets it. And I think really tying them in with my team this year was what kind of made that big, in my opinion, big jump. We got back to the conference tournament, and I think this team really understood, okay, we want to sustain success. We don't want to just be good one year and then, average the rest. We want to be able to get to the top and stay there. And so that's really what we're trying to build. And within that, just empowering our women, right? Like, we want them to be leaders in the future in their jobs, and we want them to be successful. So we're trying to build their success in all areas. You're not just great on the field, but what do you do off the field? What do you do in your community? And those are the pieces that we've really worked hard on. It's not perfect. There's only so many hours in a day. Well, he's not a newborn, but I have a 1-year-old now. So trying to really tie into our alumni and get them invested. I think those are the pieces that we're really working on as we continue to build, into what we want to be. So.
Throughout your career as a head coach, what are some of your biggest accomplishments at Bucknell?
Wow. I don't know. I don't know that you could write down a list of, things we've won necessarily so far. I think those will come. Those are coming in the future. But I think, to me, my biggest accomplishment right now is that I'm graduating these women. They have high GPAs. They're successful. They're getting jobs when they get out of here. I think our foundation is built. And I think we're starting to kind of build our house. We had the concrete laid, we have, the woodwork, but we're starting to put up the walls and really finish the touches. And I think that for me, the biggest thing that I'm most proud of is the family atmosphere and the belief in the culture that we're doing. When I do my exit meetings with my players this year, and they're excited to come back because they can feel, what we're building, and they're excited about the future. I think those are the things that I've been most proud of, because when you take over in COVID, I really had a disconnected team. That was really hard for all of us, but especially 18 to 22-year-olds not knowing what the future held. And so I think to have to get a new coach during that and have to kind of endure what came with the COVID implications that next fall, I think I'm just proud of who they are and how they overcame it, because it's been challenging. And I think that's for everyone, not just Bucknell. So that has probably been the thing. I think that if I had to hang my hat on something, I'd say it's that. And I think this year getting back to the conference tournament. I think just we have a young team. They've never done it. They haven't had a lot of success yet because we've had we've had a wild ride. So I think just those little things that maybe don't look super flashy to some, I know for us they mean everything. So that's really what I would kind of hang on to.
Of course, for you as a coach, what has that been like, obviously balancing being a new mother and being a head coach for Bucknell?
It's been hard. It's been extremely rewarding. It's been great and terrible. I think the cool thing about being a coach is you can kind of bring him along, and there's times where I'm in the bullpen with him strapped to me and we're getting it done, and then there's times when my players are kind of hanging out with him, and we've shuffled things around. So I'm really lucky again to have that family atmosphere. I'm lucky to have players that I do that enjoy being around him and want to help, and they understand. I think the best thing for me was that I have players that again are just they're mature, they get it. They're not going to demand everything of me. They're going to understand that maybe on that day I might be sleep deprived and just trying to like survive the day, and they understood. And they met me where I was, which was really helpful because I think when we came back in the fall, it was about 3 months postpartum, and it's hard, like anyone who's had a kid, I don't care like at what age or what job, it is hard. And so to have them kind of step in and understand, what she might be, a little bit more divided and she might be doing more here and there. And the second piece to that is again, my assistants, like they were able to take on more. And kind of help me slowly get back into it because you take the whole summer off and then you jump in the fall and it's kind of like you're just running around with your head cut off. And I think that it can be a mess at times, but it's also the best thing I've ever done. So I think it's been really fun. He got to travel a lot this year. He'll travel more next year, I'm sure, as he gets older, and he gets to run around at practice. And I just think I'm really fortunate. I have parents that'll watch him in between innings. I have players that will, watch him in between classes, and we just have a really great. Again, I can't say enough. We have such a great group of women and families that it just makes it's everyone's all in. So that's made it much easier than it would be, I think.
Who are some of the teams that you face each week in your conference?
In our conference, we play Lehigh, Boston, Army, Holy Cross, Lafayette, and who am I missing? Did I say Army? I don't know. Yeah, Army. So six other teams besides us that we play. So we have around 6 weekends that we compete against those teams, and then outside of that we play any and all depending on where we go that season.
Of course, what is that home game atmosphere like when teams like Lehigh come versus going to Army and playing at Army?
Yeah, I think depending on where you go, everyone in conference is a rival. So I think, traveling to other schools is, they're going to have a little bit more of a presence at times. I think we're fortunate. Lehigh and Lafayette are right down the road. So we're able to attract quite a bit of fans to those series. But as far as, our home series, I think because we don't get to play a lot at home, we're really fortunate that when we do, it's kind of a big deal. We get a lot of fans and friends and families. And I think that we're fortunate too that we play right next to baseball. So a lot of times we get some baseball fans and maybe they stay and watch us instead of them. And it's been fun to kind of see what that looks like. This year we'll play a lot more at home, which will be really nice. Last year we only played 9 home games, which is insane. But it's definitely an atmosphere where you feel like at any point, everyone's on your side, and this year our last 3 games were at home, and that was a really great series because we had to win them. And then when I watched the film back from ESPN, I mean, you can just hear the crowd in it because they knew like, okay, we got to come back, we got to win. And it was just really fun to have that atmosphere to play in.
Of course, what is that experience like getting to play Army, being a military academy school?
Army is honestly, I've played at a lot of fields and a lot of ballparks and a lot of colleges, and I'd say it's one of my favorite places I've ever been. I've been there twice now. Playing at West Point, it's historic and it's beautiful, and it's just one of those places that I don't know. I don't know that you would experience them every school that you go to. So playing a team like that, knowing how they have to recruit and they have so many different things kind of that go into their day to day that's so different than ours. It's been they're one of my favorite teams to play, to be honest. And you know you're gonna always get a good game. It doesn't matter if they're extremely talented or they're not talented. They're always talented because they're mentally tough and they don't give up. So every time we play them, we know it's gonna be a good game. And yeah, I just think they have such a great campus. It's a really cool place.
Of course, how is that atmosphere like knowing that y'all will be playing on ESPN?
I think sometimes it can give a little bit of butterflies or nerves to the players who maybe haven't done it before, but I think it's really great for our sport. You know, I don't think there could never be enough softball on TV for me. And I think the opportunity for the players, I had a few kids from California, and so for them to um, have opportunities to play in front of their families on TV and maybe see them play that they wouldn't. It's great for people who just can't make trips or travel as much. So I think it's great to have that. People see Bucknell, they might not even know what it is. So I think it gives us exposure to our school, and it just creates an atmosphere where you have recruits reaching out and they're like, "Oh, I saw you guys play. I'm super interested. I looked you up. You have my degree. You have this." And I think that's ultimately what you want for your program.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to play college softball?
Oh man, I think recruiting is insane right now. There's so many talented players, and getting to them is hard. I think that Pennsylvania by itself has a ton of talent, and then you just expand from there, and you can imagine how many players there are. But I think, it starts with emails and it starts with camps and clinics and being able to work with the players and trying to get on the radar. But we travel all summer. Like I said, I have two other assistants, so we're out all summer recruiting. I've been in Chattanooga, I've been in Gainesville, Florida, I'll be in Texas, I'll be in the Northeast tournaments. So I just think it's chaotic. It's hard to find people sometimes, but it's also really easy. The thing that I've enjoyed most about Bucknell is that a lot of times you have players who come to you in the sense that they really want the high academic and they understand the culture. And so we're really fortunate that when we have a camp, I think you could fill a roster from all the talent that you get. So it's been a easy process in some ways, but also, recruiting is always hard because you're building your future, right? So you're trying to find the right fit culturally and making sure that the parents are going to be people who are bringing into your culture too. And I think that part it's like doing a job interview. So it's been really fun, to be honest.
As a head coach, what are some of the things that you look at in those prospective student athletes when going out to these tournaments?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's that competitive factor. I want to see the players that, they understand the game at a high level. They have the tools, that they would need to compete academically. They have to fit, Bucknell. That's a kind of a key piece. And honestly, the academics do come first for us. We got to make sure you can even get in before we start pursuing that athletic side of things. But I really want players who love the game. I love watching the players that run out onto the field that love to compete. They hate losing. Those are the ones that I really look for. And I think, finding the ones who understand and have been through some hard times. I think sometimes if you haven't had any struggles in high school, you come to college and now you're a really small fish in a big pond where you've used to been, the big fish. And so I think it's great when I see someone who's like, you know what, I had to earn the starting role in my sophomore year, or I didn't get to play right away on my travel ball team. I think those players typically have a little bit easier time, or maybe have played for a challenging travel ball coach who's hard on them, or any of those things. So kind of look for a little bit of everything, but ultimately, can you compete every day at practice and games, in the classroom? Like, are you going to fit kind of that piece of the puzzle? Because those are really important for us to be able to build our team around.
What does that official visit look like when those prospective student athletes come on campus and see the campus?
Yeah, I think when it's an official visit, we're trying to make sure that you see the side of campus that you would see if you're here. And I would say that's for unofficials as well. We want to create that picture of this is what it's like at Bucknell. You might spend a lot of time with me, but you're also going to spend time with my student athletes, because ultimately they're the ones who are going through it. They live it, they know it. So I want their perspective on you. A lot of times we'll take them to class just so they can, sit back and kind of feel what that feels like, especially if it's in their major. Try to pair them up with the players who are kind of walking that same path that they would. I like to make sure that they see a practice or some individuals or just kind of that atmosphere so they understand what it feels like. If they're around for a game, that's even better. But I definitely like to give them the clearest picture of what to expect so that when they get here, they're not super surprised by it. Obviously, we have to feed them all the local foods because that's important. Make sure they get a whoopie pie or something, Amish from up here, because that's kind of a big part of the culture. But yeah, ultimately just trying to make sure that we give them as much as we can give them so that they know exactly what it feels like. Did they see the facilities? Did they get a feel for what a day-to-day would be like? Did they walk campus? Did they see the dorm room? Those are things that I think are really important. But past that, it's spending time with myself, my staff, us wanting to sit down with their parents and siblings and make sure that everybody kind of understands what it looks like. And so we try to really create that. I spend a lot of time with them one-on-one just so they can kind of pepper me with questions and make sure they know who I am. And those are pieces that are really important to me as we kind of go through the process.
Of course, as a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that jersey and represent Bucknell for the first time?
Yeah, I'm a little old school. I don't love doing trying on the jerseys, during the visits and doing all the really cool photo shoots. I think it's awesome. I think it's such a cool thing to see us kind of mimic football and start to do some of those things. And I certainly have done them in the past. But I just think it's so special when you get to put it on the first time and it's your time to actually play for the school that you've promised yourself to. So I think it's extremely special. It's one of those moments that you never forget, that first time kind of like zipping up the pants and putting on the socks and, whether it's in the fall or the spring, I just think it's a really cool, moment, and it just means a lot. And so, when you have these relationships with these freshmen that maybe I've known them for 2 years now through the recruiting process, and now I get to experience them as a freshman, it's got to be similar, I think, to having a kid. It's like you're watching them grow up right in front of you. I think 18 to 22-year-olds, they change a lot. I think from year one to when they graduate, like they are totally different people. And that's one of the most exciting parts of the job is to see them come in to be, however they are, and then how they grow throughout the time that they're here. And I think the jersey to me is sacred. And I think having that Bucknell or whatever, the Bison logo, I think it means a lot.
What is that like to see those seniors putting that jersey on for the last time?
It's hard. It's hard. I think that your seniors are, whether you want them to be or not, they're your leaders, right? You can name captains and you can have a freshman who's in the mix or a sophomore, but ultimately I think your seniors are the ones who really set the tone. And to go back to how we do our culture, I think our seniors have been the last, my only 3 years here, but the last 3 years here, certainly they've really been instrumental in implementing what they want the culture to be like. I think culture is player led. And we might feed it, but they ultimately are the ones that foster it and grow it. And they've done a great job of going and getting the freshmen, making sure they know how to get to class and how to get their food and what the day-to-day looks like. Do you know how to throw the way that we throw? Do you know how to receive the way we receive? And they've been really instrumental in how we kind of shape our culture, and they save us a ton of time because instead of us fielding all these questions and walking them through it, our seniors are like, hey, we got them. Like we've already taken them to class. We're taking them to practice. Like they know what to do. I don't waste time explaining you need to tuck in your shirt for lifts, right? I don't have to do that because my seniors are going to take them and make sure they know what to do and make sure they know what the standard is. And so that's something I think is honestly, I think you can undervalue it, but that's not me. I might have said these are the things I want, but they're the ones who really implement it and make sure that it happens. And so I think seeing them play for the last time, it's hard because you think, what are they leaving behind? And I think that's what's been great about the classes I've had is that they've left something big, and it's way bigger than what they did on the field. So definitely hard, but it's also exciting because they're going to go take on the world and do grown up things, which is what we want. So.
Of course, what is that experience like seeing them go on into the corporate world or even into playing professional softball after Bucknell?
I think it's everything. I think when you hear from your former players who are crushing it in the real world, or they're playing ball, or they're doing something that they love, or even if they're struggling, I think just to hear them call you and say, "Hey, I need help with this," or "Can you give me advice? Can you speak on my behalf for this job?" I think I have former players that are still using me as a reference, and that's something I'm always going to be proud of. Like, they invite me to a wedding, I'm there. I'll cancel anything to be at a player wedding, because I think it just means a lot. It's to be a part of someone's life, and to impact them on that level that they feel that they can call you and you can help them out, or just to tell you, hey, I have this job and I love it and I'm happy. I think those are the things that are really special, and more so than on the field, right? Like, you being great at softball is really cool, but it's a really small piece of your life. So what you do afterwards has always been the thing that stands out to me. And I have a few players that are coaching. I have a few that are moms. I have a few that are, in the real world crushing it, like I said. So I think those are things that are really cool to me. Just see them kind of grow up and start families, or do all these things. So yeah, it's definitely special. And we have quite a few here at Bucknell have done some big things, and we're only 3 years in. So I can only imagine as they continue to go down those paths, what it'll look like.
Of course, what is that like seeing those coaches that are going into coaching and taking what you've taught them as a player into their coaching career?
Yeah, I think watching players give back is one of the best things. I always say that you have certain players that you're like, that kid needs to be a coach, or that she's got it. Like, she gets it. She's a teacher. She's a student, and we have so many kids here that go to really big things. They're going pre-med, or they're going to go be engineers. They're going to go do some of these great things. And it's really cool when you see them kind of pause and take a second to do lessons or clinics or camps or coach. And those are things that I think just are really cool, because you think, okay, they must have had a good experience playing. And I think that's such a fun, it's just a fun thing. Then you can call them and talk to them. Like I said, my former players, I can call them, how's your team? What are you guys doing? What have you found that's working? And I think you learn from them just as much as they learn from you. So it's been really cool to kind of fall back on that and see, okay, look at who's doing this. And there's ones that I reach out to, like, hey, you want to come coach with me? And I think that's such a cool thing to be able to say, like, I coached this player and now she works for me, or she's helping me with my team. So those are things I think are just, they're precious, in the sense of, like, you can't draw that up, and it's not always going to work that way, but when it does, it's pretty cool.
What are some of your future plans for Bucknell softball moving forward?
I think on the field specifically is to compete for championships. I think to be in the top of the conference every year, to play in the tournaments and make sure that we're representing Bucknell at a high level, in the sense of competing consistently. I think that we're not too far from where we want to be in that regard. And it's been fun to kind of build that aspect of, like I said, I don't want to be a flash in the pan. I want to be someone who can sustain success for a long time. And I think that's what's really fun about the Patriot League, is that, we have the opportunity to do that. I think in terms of the alumni, I'd really like to continue to build relationships and bring them back into our fold in terms of mentoring and making sure that they feel connected to our program, because it is a program that people feel really proud of and they're really excited to be a part of it. And I think now that we're outside of this COVID bubble and people are traveling more and more available, I've met more people. I've gotten to kind of like have pen pals or emails back and forth, and we've had people at our games. This year we got to meet a alumni who was on the first team ever at Bucknell. And like, those are moments that are so special. And that's what I want our team to get to be a part of, is how do we get them connected back? And I'd say that's a big piece of the future. And then ultimately just have a program that we're really proud of, like that our culture is really strong, and that we graduate all our women and they go on to do great things. So I think we're just kind of building I guess for me, it's that long term, what are we building and can we sustain it? And if you look back at the history of Bucknell, unfortunately, there's just been a lot of turnover. There's been people that have come and gone, and there's been great, great coaches. And I think longevity is the piece that's been missing, is can we keep some consistency to who's here and how we do things? And I think that's ultimately my goal, is just to be able to create that consistency so that these players have the best 4 years that they can have. That's the ultimate goal.
What advice would you give those freshmen entering their first year of collegiate softball?
As the kids would say, it's not that deep. I think a lot of times as a freshman, everything feels so big and so momentous. And if I don't do really well at practice, I won't play. Or if I get a B on this exam, I'm going to fail the class. And I think it's just that take a breath, experience everything you can experience, take it all in. You'll only be a freshman once, and you're supposed to be naive and you're supposed to not have all the answers, and that's okay. I think, just be where your feet are, enjoy the process. Like, it's such a fast year, and it's so hard. Like, your freshman year is so hard. So many things come at you, but take a breath, enjoy it. You'll only be a freshman once, and just really soak it in, because you can learn so much in that first year.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to play professional softball, whether it's Athletes Unlimited or the national team route?
I think just understanding you're gonna have to work really hard. I think those women are amazing. I don't think that they get paid enough, and a lot of them are doing multiple jobs. There's a lot of us that are coaches that are playing pro, and I think, even the former coach at Bucknell, she played for the Canadian national team and went to the Olympics. Like, that's unbelievable that she was able to sit here in this seat and do this job, and then also be training to play in the Olympics. And I think those are things that not other sports have to do. A lot of other sports don't have to play pro and work another job. A lot of them are teachers or coaches, or they have another profession. And so I think understanding that it's gonna be hard. You're gonna sacrifice a lot, but it's probably going to be really worth it, because eventually the pro league is going to be something that everyone's watching and that takes off, because softball's so amazing. But I think for me, like, my advice would just be, you're going to work hard. You're going to have to continue to work hard, and you're going to have to always show up and do the work. And it'll be a rewarding experience, because you get to continue to play the sport you love. And I think anybody who gets more time after they graduate, like, you've won.
Of course, what advice would you give those players that are looking to get into coaching college softball after their playing career?
I think understanding that it comes with a price. I think coaching, it comes with a price. It's not a bad or a good. It's just what it is. Like, you're going to sacrifice time with your family and friends. You're going to sacrifice a lot of weekends. I saw Nick Saban, who's one of my favorite football coaches for Alabama. He talks about, I think their staff worked 50 weeks out of 52 or 56 or whatever it is. And 7 days a week, right? And I'm not saying we're at that level. I just think it kind of puts in perspective how much time you sacrifice with your loved ones. And I think so when you get in, you can't take that lightly. But I also think if you're going to start out coaching, you got to work really hard in the beginning. We have to work hard forever, but in the beginning, to really establish yourself, I think you take on as much as you can, you learn. You be loyal to the person who's teaching you, and you find ways to be successful, right? And I think it's definitely not for the faint of heart. It's definitely a lifestyle that can be extremely rewarding, but it also can be really hard. Losing is not fun. It can be really tied to you as a person sometimes, and I'm really big on advocating for not just the student athletes, but also the coaches. We talk about their mental health a ton. I don't know that we talk about coaches enough, but it's hard. It's a really hard profession, and there's a lot of critics, there's a lot of opinions, and they're always going to be there. So I think it's understanding that you're not just a coach, you're not just a softball player, you're also a person. Like, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I have all these other things in my life. So while I want to be successful as a coach and as a person and a professional, I also understand that there is separation between the two. If we lose a game, it's not because I'm a terrible person, right? So I think young people getting in, understanding that you have to be secure in who you are. Otherwise, I think it can eat you up. And I think as a young coach, every loss, it was like a dagger to the heart. And I think while they still hurt me and I hate losing, it's understanding the bigger picture of, we're building something really special here. It takes what it takes. And sometimes that's time, and it might not be on your clock or on other people's clock, but it's on mine. So I think those pieces are things I don't think you would understand as a young coach, but those are things I needed to hear. It's like, you know what, you're doing okay. So
What advice would you give those people that are looking to get into college coaching and also be mothers?
oof. I think you have to have a great support system, regardless of who you work for, if you work for yourself. I have a boss above me that I report to. She's a mother. She gets it. She's been amazing to have this year, just to understand where I'm at and kind of meeting me where I am. I think having good assistants for me as a head coach has been amazing because, again, I have an assistant who's a mom who gets it. Her son's only 3 months behind mine. But to also have my other assistant who is not a parent but understands kind of what our day-to-day looks like and being able to take on more when he needs to. He's been really helpful. So I think I don't know if I have a lot of advice because I'm still kind of tiptoeing and figuring it out, but I think it's ultimately that you got to have good people around you. You have to have support. My partner gets it. He's great. He understands, what, these 6 months are going to be like crazy and chaotic. And this is when I have to do a little bit more. And then, what, in the summertime, she can kind of take on a little bit more. So, I think it's just that having that balance between that, but then also I think it's the most amazing thing in the world. And I think it teaches you a lot about, I was a different coach before I was a mom. And now that I'm a mom, it helps me see from these parents' point of view. And it helps me understand, like, hey, how would I want to talk to my son in this moment? Or how would I feel if, this was my kid? So I think it gives you a different perspective that's always good. A new perspective is always a good way to kind of be when you go into this profession.
What advice would you give those head coaches looking to get started and building their own legacy?
Wow. That's a great question. I think for me, it would probably be that you're never done learning. I think you've never arrived. I don't think that, or for me, I've never arrived. I'm never going to sit here. I could have 18 championships and I'm never going to be done reading books or trying to get better. And I think if I ever do, then I'll probably leave the profession because it's something to me that's always growing. And if Patty Gasso is the best and she's still continuing to change and do different things, then I think we all should be doing that. So I think it's understanding that you're never done. Building a legacy is probably the hardest thing you can do. We're starting to see some of the greatest of all time retire and kind of take on new adventures. And I think it's those are the pieces that you're like, wow, think about, you coached 30 years somewhere. You that was a lot of work. You did a lot of things. So I think it's probably about kind of having that understanding and always growing and learning and knowing that there's more. But also just that you never arrive. I think I could do this till I'm 80 and I'm still gonna think, oh gosh, what else could I do? So I don't know if that's the best advice, but that's how I think of it.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Bucknell softball program at?
Yeah, for Bucknell, they can find them. I think it's Bucknell SB. For me, it's at Coach Cy. So my maiden name is Cygress. So it's SII. That's what everyone calls me. So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. If you like looking at pictures of dogs and babies, Instagram is probably the place to go. Twitter is more for my team stuff and recruiting. But yeah, we're out there. You can find us on pretty much all the platforms.
Thank you again, Coach Sarah Caffrey, for your interview and best of luck in your future at Bucknell as the head softball coach.
Thanks for having me.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Sarah Caffrey, for your interview and best of luck in your future at Bucknell.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.